I've been teaching for 15 years. More than 15, more or less. Maybe I'm on my 16th year, whatever. Since 2007 is when I officially was a certified teacher. But, you know, you teach before that, but you don't have a certification. And then, like, there were times where I was working in a traditional teaching setting or an atypical teaching setting. But currently, the focus has been these students, particularly in the 6th grade through freshman levels, right? And these are the kids that we're seeing heavily the effects of teaching during COVID, being online learners, being at home, being with parents or guardians that were with them a lot of the time or not around at all. You know, like they were stuck at home because they weren't at school. There wasn't this governmentally instituted babysitter for these kids. And so these kids are at home, and some kids were able to have the self-efficacy or wherewithal to log into a computer and follow along with the class and do the assignments and learn how to essentially thrive through COVID, being independent. But that's such a small demographic. That's not the typical. And then you've got these kids that, yeah, they were logged in, but they were doing whatever, playing video games or not paying attention. Like, they just had the classroom in the background, and sometimes they did the work, sometimes they didn't. But ultimately, the ones that have learned literally throughout COVID were those who had support systems at home, parents and what have not. But you've got these kids that either had parents that were constantly there, they weren't necessarily hover parents, but the kids were always around their parents, so that they're used to this person that's consistently there, either guiding them on their behaviors or giving them the answers or doing it for them. And then you've got some kids who have parents that were very a good balanced, I'm going to use those words loosely, support systems at home. Parents that said, hey, are you paying attention in class? Did you do your homework? Blah, blah, blah. But also built in these students the independence that, hey, this is how we're going to do stuff today. You need to learn these skills so that you know, recognize what you need to do, when you need to do it, and in what order, like the order of operations. But that takes the understanding of students, children, people to be able to do these identifiers. Like, these are the things that I need to do. These are the order of importance. This is the timely manner. This is how much time these individual things are going to take, and I need to get these things done. And ultimately, those people also find more time because they do the stuff to completion, right? They get the stuff done. They get those check marks, and so they find these areas of time where they can do things that they're interested in. Like, they make time. They find the time. That's what making time essentially is like understanding how much time, how much effort, like, I need to get these things done, and then to make time is getting finished with these things so you have time for other things, right? That's making time. And so currently, particularly these kids that have been in it's 2023, right? So the kids that are now freshmen, the kids that are in 8th grade, the kids that are 7th grade are where I'm seeing the effects of being home during COVID, the learning styles that they had, the people that they had to support them and or not, and their level of wherewithal, the ability to do all these things, to have balance in their life, to recognize levels of importance. So some of these kids are thriving, and some of them need a lot more support. And they come in, and truth be told, they're loud, they're obnoxious, they're naggy, they don't know how to conduct themselves. They don't know how to read the room, literally and figuratively. And so it's been a struggle as a teacher, having these kids with different ability levels. And it's not a few, there's over 10, less than 30 in these classes. And when you have all these kids that don't know what to do with themselves, it becomes a lot. So me being able to get through subject matter, things that I can teach them, is an argument of futility. It's a losing battle, because when everybody's running around, literally and figuratively, and not focused and doing whatever and doing distracting things or doing obnoxious things, you can't teach because you're putting out these fires. And so it's been a big question. And after weeks of reflection on what do I do with these kids? How do I make this better? How do I do more and do better? You try a lot of different things, and some things work and some things don't. And so you try it for a while, and if it stops working, you try something else. So these little things work. It's chipping away at the boulder. But to get it to this well-sculpted class, this class that's self-sufficient, because ultimately the role of a teacher, a good teacher in my opinion, is somebody that's teaching themselves out of a job. The beauty is that there's always going to be more kids, so by the time I'm done with these students, they've learned the abilities, the necessities that my class was trying to elucidate, and by the time they're done, they don't need that class anymore. They're self-sufficient. They've been taught. They know how to do this. And you can't get to those things that are governmentally required, the check marks, the standards, unless the class is functioning. And that's the whole misconception of education at large, is that teachers go in, they're able to give information, and the students are able to get that information and know how to apply it and carry it with them, see where it fits into their life. And there more and more, less and less of this is being retained. And so working with these, particularly 7th and 8th graders this year, has been a struggle with the fact that these kids don't know what to do with their little bodies. They are just, energy is going every which way. It's not focused at all. And so teaching has become teaching focus, like streamlining, like directing their lives, teaching them how to direct their own lives more so. And so I've had to go back into this essential backwards classroom. And if you don't know what that means, that's like you do the teaching outside the class, and then the inside of the class you just do the work. So during an example of this would be a teacher would make a video, put it on the internet, the kids would watch the video and learn the information, and they'd have this re-reference video. So they watch the video, and then if they needed to hear something again, they can rewind it and play it again. And a good version of this video would be starting and ending with, these are the objectives, these are the check marks that I'm looking for in your work. And it can be process based or outcome based, like, you need to do this action in order to achieve this result. And so not only is it teaching outcomes, you need to teach how to do the process and how to enact it, how to embody these things. So these kids can reference these videos, they can rewind it, they can play it, whatever. And then when they would come into the classroom, the materials would be provided, and any guidance based off of what they have seen in the video would be addressed in the classroom. So, I saw this, but I don't truly understand it. Can you explain it to me? So, or maybe this wasn't covered well enough in the video. So, in the classroom, I want to ask the teacher this question: what did you mean? So, that's what education in a backwards classroom would look like. So essentially, I've started to do this with these 7th and 8th graders. But the problem is, they don't know how to use computers. They can log in and they can do stuff on them, but they don't know how to use them. Like, they don't know appropriacy. So these kids are making fart noises and watching videos and blasting music while there's, 20 other kids in the classroom. So if they're all doing this, there's no way you're getting through anything. It's just constant distractions. It's loud. It's obnoxious. It's rude. And so they can't use the computers. So I had to basically keep stripping things away and teach them how to do everything. And what I mean by everything is, this one class that I'm teaching particularly is a digital design class for 7th and 8th graders. So what this means is kids need to learn how to use programs that follow algorithms, and then they need to know these techniques to get these outcomes. So when you've got kids that barely know the conduct of, like, they're unplugging each other's computers and shutting them off and everything. So the kids that are capable of doing this are continually having to restart. And then there's kids that don't focus on this, or they do understand this very well, and because they're waiting for everybody else, they're bored. So just logging into the computers became problem number 1. Problem number 2, and any successive problem, were not able to be addressed. The teaching could not happen. And not only that this chair, and like, I do not blame the school for this. I do believe that the way this classroom was set up was appropriate for the basic conception of what teaching would be. And so, to paint the picture, there's computers on either side. So you've got a row of 2 computers going back, and 2 other computers, like 2 in each section. So 2, 2, 2, 2, and then on the other side 2, 2, and then there were desks in the middle. Problem was that along with these computers and the problems that I was describing previously, the chairs that are at the computers had wheels on them. So not only do I have the problems that were going on with the computers, I have kids shooting like roller derby. They were like literally taking laps with their chairs, flinging around. So, and because there were desks in a row of 2 desks, 2, 2, 2 desks in the middle. So I've got a perfect racetrack, and these kids are flinging up and down and banging into each other, and knocking each other over, and like just chaos. They were feral. And so they don't know what to do in that classroom setting. I mean, they've been basically home with their brothers and sisters, and they've got parents, maybe somebody guarding them, or the parents are essential workers, so they have to work they were worked to the bone. So like they couldn't hire babysitters. They couldn't afford it. So kids had to take care of kids, or they're left alone. They're sat with a computer in front of them, or they're like, you got to take care of your little brother, sister, or whatever have you. So whatever dynamic needed to happen during that time was the result of what I'm seeing in the classroom now. And I'm seeing a huge variance. So it ultimately came down that I had to take away everything. Literally, the kids weren't allowed to go on the computers. I stacked up all the chairs and put them in the corner and wouldn't let them use them. And we sat on the floor. We had to go back to basics. And this is kind of something that I extrapolated or learned from working in wilderness therapy in the woods. These kids were stripped of everything from their lives. They were given a backpack of necessities, which they had to learn to care for. We had to teach them what they all were. You know, this is a tent. This is a sleeping pad. This is a sleeping bag. These are how these things work. Here's your backpack. Here's how you organize the backpack. I'm gonna wait a second. Commercial break of me driving through intersections and focusing. So these kids were given this backpack full of stuff that they needed, these necessities for their survival in the woods, right? Because these kids that I worked with were in the woods for a minimum of 60 days. They didn't come out, and like they were able to do more commercial. Okay, so these kids were given backpacks with all the survival necessities. And the idea of wilderness therapy is that kids are removed from toxic situations in which they might be friends, family, whomever, and then they are like these kids that just don't know what to do with anything, and they're stripped down to their bare necessities. They're given clothes, everything that they need, nothing that they really want, and then they're put in the middle of the woods with therapists and people taking care of them and everything like that. So that's what I did with this class, is I stripped them down to bare necessities. What do you need to be in this classroom? Well, you basically needed floor, something to draw with, and a piece of paper. Everything else was taken away from them, and they, to the point where they didn't know how to be in a classroom. So we literally reset from the hallway. This is what it's like to come into a classroom. Once you get into the classroom, what do you do? So I'd have the kids line up on the wall, and if they were dinking around, we'd just stand out there until they were ready to come in the classroom. And it sucked because they were in a hallway, and luckily this hallway was away from most classes, but they were so loud that they did disrupt other classes down the other hallways. So I felt bad for the teachers, but this is what I needed to do from the beginning, was teach them how to come into a classroom. And this just benefits everybody, you know, like we should have done this as a whole school. Like, this is how you come into the classroom. We'll practice this with the understanding that you're disrupting everybody else, and that's necessary. They need to know that they're disrupting. They need to be yelled at. They need to be yelled at is a relative term. They need to be told what they are doing wrong and how they need to fix it, because they did not have these basic skills. So we started in the hallway, and if they were standing there quietly, then they got to go in the classroom. And if they were dinking around, they just got to stand there. And then once we made it into the classroom, the goal was to get everybody in the classroom. But because I had to monitor the kids out in the hall, they couldn't use their computers because, like I said, they couldn't function with them. They did not know the decorum of how to use computers. So I had to write everything on the board, step by step. And I would say to them once they get in the classroom, once you get in the classroom, do the things on the board. There's the cart with all your tools. Go get only what you need. And that had to be taught too, because they grab like chunks of crayons and colored pencils and they drop them all over, and like or they take the whole boxes, and like then the kids couldn't find them, so they had to be taught how to do this. So this is stuff that is should be fundamentals, but remediation has become the foundation of what's happening with these kids. We're starting from the ground up, and so it's been building, and I'm in my 5th week or so, and so like we've gotten into the classroom. Kids are not allowed on the Mac computers that we were supposed to use for the digital design. By the way, I did change the class into just a straight art design class, and instead of doing stuff digitally like on Photoshop or whatever like we originally were intended to do, now we're doing basic design. So we're basically designing comic books. So these first couple of weeks we had to establish characters, and we've got a lot of character development to do, which is fine. And so we're learning that design, and basically the character design that these kids are doing are going to reflect on themselves. They don't know it yet. I know it. But they need to develop these characters so that they can use them. And they needed to learn individual characters, and a lot of the characters are based off of other characters or look very much like, let's be honest, they took the characters and they called it their own. And so now we got to start developing these personalities, which is basically what these kids need to do as well, because they don't know how to be independent. So we're finally in the classroom. Kids are not using Macs. They may use their Chromebooks, which they still don't use appropriately, and I have to take those away too. But if they use them appropriately to look up imagery or references, they can use their computers. So, or look up information, whatever. Learning appropriacy. So, I've gotten to the point where I still write everything on the board, and I give due dates. And then the kids are learning that if they have questions, they come up to me, because the raising hands wasn't working. They were screaming at me. They didn't know how to raise their hands. So now, if they need help, they need to come up to me, and they need to wait in line. And they're learning that if they're running around the classroom, that's starting to distract. Here's the line of people that are trying to get stuff done. Here's people being dumb, and sometimes they take corrections well. And like, hey, you need to stop doing that, get back to work. That's fine, they do that. But other kids are just buzzing around or like doing something that's distracting to themselves and or others. They're not getting their work done, or they don't even know what to ask because they haven't even started yet. So those kids need to be monitored individually. So I have to leave my line, go fix these kids, direct them, and then I can come back to these kids that are ready to ask questions. And the line's learning to stay in line. Otherwise, if you lose your place in line, you got to go back from the beginning. So I've had to groundwork these kids from the bottom up. And so this is what teaching is starting to become, building the people. Because like, it's learning as a society, understanding that the classroom is the society. And so with my older kids, it's a matter of learning self-conduct. They've learned how to sit there. You know, my freshmen sit there, but they're rude, and they're like, how dare you bother me? And you see this when you go out in like Walmart or something. Like you see these employees that are doing something, or they're staring at their phones, and you come up and ask them questions, and they don't know anything. They're there in body, but like they don't care enough about their jobs. They don't know how to do these things. So if they don't know how to conduct themselves in a classroom, how are they supposed to conduct themselves in a job? This is where what is lost on education is the fact that we need to do this stuff. Like, that's the basis. And like, God bless kindergarten and preschool teachers. You know, those they're doing all this preschool work. You know, oh, you need to come in, you need to line up, you need to have the things that you need to get through the day. You need to learn how to be around other kids. You got to learn how to play nicely. You know, not to be rude. But now we're doing this with middle schoolers because those formative years were lost and they reset. They became feral. And to understand that is to understand education and what the job of a teacher does. We are sculpting a society, and if we don't do these things, when they get out into society, they don't know. And the problem is that people forget that. The difference between an individual and a society. And everybody's worried about everybody else and what's going on due to social media. They can make all these comments because they've been behind a computer screen. These kids playing video games have been screaming and saying profanities and things like that because there's nobody to monitor them. And they're just screaming to nobody with no repercussions except, oh, you might die on the video game. You know, oh, I got shot, and now I'll get respawned, and I can talk trash to whoever again, and like I'll just keep messing with them. And being a society means that there's going to be a lot of people that you're going to be interacting with. They're going to be very different people. They're not the same as you, and so you've got a lot of criticism. Why aren't you like me? But to understand society, to understand to conduct yourself with others is, yeah, you're gonna have differences, and that's okay. But as soon as your differences start negatively impacting me, that's when it becomes a problem. And that's where society's at, is like everything that we're doing is outward. You're trying to affect me, and because of that, affect me. That's an affect. There's a result happening, and so it's all negative. We're all shooting negative things, and really we need to be thinking about ourselves, which sounds selfish, but you need to stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and figure out yourself first. And figuring yourself out means understanding that maybe I shouldn't be doing this. This is not benefiting me. And if it's not benefiting me, it's not benefiting others. And so that becomes the goal, is to get students to this recognition before they go out into the world, before they graduate, before they legally become an adult. And so this is where it needs to be. So with the high schoolers now, it's becoming self-reflection, opening up this understanding of everything, the wherewithal, like becoming a whole person, physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual. And if you're just trying to get things done so that you can sit around, that's not the right effort. It's an effort, but what does that do for yourself? What does that do for others? And you look at social media, you can look at what people are interested in and who they follow and things like that, and that becomes the precipice of who a person is. What do you like? What are you interested in? Is this teaching you something? Are you growing in it? Is this somebody that's supporting you in positive things? Or is it just drivel? Is it just something, and drivel's fine too, it has its place, but when that's the only thing, you don't grow as a person. Like, I like the cute little animals with big eyes, just like anybody else, and they do cute little things. Or I like somebody doing something like funny You know, I like funny stuff, but if it's denigrating, if it's hurting you in some way, physical, mental, social, emotional, or spiritual, or if it's negative, or if it's angry, these are things that are not conducive to development. And so figuring out who you follow, what you're interested in, is it helping you develop as a person, becomes the question mark of social media. Like, what are these people truly trying to tell you? And what are you saying? What do you find of value? Who am I? What am I projecting to other people? Am I a positive influence or a negative influence? So this is what I'm seeing in the high school classes, and this is what I still need to develop. So, thank you for your time.
Do more, do better.
Attention.